You're listening to Hard in the Paint with your hosts, Kyle and Justin. A Clemson basketball podcast sponsored by the Fanboys. Let's go!
Welcome in, everyone. For Hard in the Paint, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Justin.
Happy holiday season to you guys. Hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas. We are in the swing of going into the heart of ACC play coming right up in just a couple weeks. But before we get there, we're going to go over everything that has happened in between the men's and the women's side of things in this episode. First, just want to go over our sponsors. We are sponsored by Pepsi, Clemson Wine Bar, Arden's Burger and Grill in Central, Physical Therapy in Anderson, Greenville Sports Media, and of course, the Fanboys. Justin, I'll let you go ahead and get into the things of all women's Clemson basketball.
Well, I mean, the first thing we got to talk about is them losing at home against Georgia State, 78-72. One thing that sticks out to me, and it sticks out to you as well, the turnover. I mean, we had 14 to their 10, which is not bad because you want to range around 14 turnovers in college. But you had 18 points off those turnovers for Georgia State. I mean, that's the tail of the game right there.
Yep.
Amari Robertson had 35 points, was 11 for 13 from the field, 10 for 12 from the free throw line. It just seems like Amari took over that game, and one thing that sticks out to me, you didn't have anybody else in double figures. The closest you had was Harris with 9 points and Kramer with 9 points. But, of course, with Kramer, you're going to at least get three. That could be 3 frees right there. So,
another number I wanted to point out is the 66% from the free throw line. It's going to be hard to win basketball games if you're shooting, below 70% from the free throw line as a team. It's also going to be hard to win basketball games when your star player in Robinson, literally carried the team on her back to what would have been an absolute blowout had she not had the game she had. I mean, it was a valiant effort from her. But you can look in the box score for Georgia State and see why they won the game. I mean, when you have Bryan, who had 12, you had Henderson, who had 17, Williams, who had 21, you had Tolbert, who had 15. I mean, that's game basketball. I mean, that's team basketball. So,
I mean, when I was a coach, we always wanted to at least have 3 people in double figures because that balanced out the team. I mean, yes, you could still have those guys that shot 2, 6, 7, 8 points, but as long as you had at least 3 people in double figures, you were evenly balancing the ball. And as you can see from Clemson, I mean, the 2 closest players was Kramer at 9 and Harris at 9. I mean, you're not going to get it done if one player's taking over the entire game. Yeah. I mean, Amari Robinson's a great player, but, I mean, you can't do it by yourself.
She also played 37 minutes. That is an absurd amount of minutes to play for any person. Like, she played 37 minutes. The next closest person played 10 less minutes than her.
I mean, one positive I would say, she shot 3 for 3 from 3. So, yeah. I mean, that's a great stat right there.
Yeah,
as a team, they shot 35%, which is okay.
Yeah.
But I would want that percentage up a little more.
If it was right around where Georgia State shot, which is about 40%, if you're shooting 40% from 3 as a team, yeah, you're shooting the 3-pointer pretty dang well. Yeah, Robinson's field goal percentage was absolutely absurd. I mean, when you're 11 for 13 and 10 from 12 from the free throw line, that is absurd. Like
Mm.
she literally just carried the team and tried to get them to win. They fell five or they fell 6 points short. Excuse me, I said 5 points. Can't do math today. But fell 6 points short. I mean, it's a valiant effort on her part. Other parts of the team, they got to step up. Like it's one thing that we talked about before the show. We just said the lack of inconsistency, and I feel like we've been saying this way too much about the women's team. But the lack of inconsistency that you get week in and week out from this team is absurd. Like in basketball, you got to have something. I mean, of course, at least you can point to the fact that you're going to get what you're going to get out of Robinson, but it's like, what the heck are you supposed to expect out of these women? So I don't know, man.
Yeah, and now I mean we can move on to the Air Force game, and it's a turn of the tape. I mean,
Yep.
you look at it, we turnover wise, we were okay. I mean, well, no, never mind.
Yeah, turnover wise,
Probably a sloppy game, but
yeah.
off those turnovers, Clemson still had 22 points. I mean, that's a good effort, especially in a sloppy game.
Hmm.
Um, but you almost had three people in double figures. You had a Mari Robinson at 14, Whitehorn at 17, and Harris was right up there at 9. I mean, that's game basketball right there.
Yeah, the thing I like from this game is looking down at the bench box score and just seeing the splashes of, a couple points here, a couple points there. Freeman having 4, Ott having 3, Kramer having 5, Rouch having 6. I mean, it looks much better on the box score, but like you said, this game was extremely sloppy. I mean,
Very.
the Lady Tigers had 25 turnovers and still won the game by 16 points. You're not going to find that on a box score very often. But when you're looking in the retrospect and you shoot 70% from the free throw line, you shoot 50% from the field, and you shoot 35% from three-pointer while holding them to 33% from the field, them being Air Force. I mean, it's kind of a recipe for success, but at the same time, Lord have mercy. Both these teams were just throwing the basketball all over the place. Air Force having 21 turnovers, Clemson having 25. That's some
And
sloppy basketball.
one of the stats that points out to me, just looking down the stat sheet, uh, gang rebounding here. Clemson had 41 rebounds to Air Force's 30. And
Mm-hmm.
that was 13 offensive, which is great. That means they're getting second chance points off those rebounds. And then defensive rebounds, basically out of let's see here, it was a 10 rebound difference. I mean, that's one and done.
Yep.
I mean, for the most part,
Yep.
it's one shot and rebound, and that's something you like to see as a coach. Is you like to see the gang rebounding happen, and I mean, if you look at the stats across the board, there's gang rebounding everywhere across the board. I mean, your lowest player had 1 rebound, but your highest player had 8, and that was in Amari Robinson.
Of course.
And then if you look at the starters, it's 4, 8, 6, 6, and 1. I mean, that's great rebounding and a
Yeah.
lot better from the last game.
Yeah, then they kept it rolling here going into the ETSU game. They kept this ball rolling, playing some more, shall I say, mid-level opponents. But ETSU is 10-4, so it's not like they're some wax of a team, but at the same time, they are get right spots. This game, I think, when you look down the box score in this one, we really played to the level of what the Lady Tigers should be playing at every game, but it's just inconsistency. I'll let you go into that one.
So I mean, the turnovers were a lot better this game. Yes, it's 15, but that's a lot better compared to what's here, 25, 21 the last game. And then, like we said, with the Georgia State game, you had 14, but you
Mm-hmm.
had 18 points off turnovers. That's a lot better. And off of the 21 turnovers that ETSU committed, you had 25 points off those turnovers. So it's a lot better. One thing that I like to mention is field goal percentage was a lot was better in this game too. You shot 49% from the field, which means your shot selection was a lot better. You weren't
Yeah.
settling for the jump shot that's wide open. You were looking for the extra pass to get a good shot out of it.
Yep.
And then you shot 47% from three. That's outstanding percentage from three.
Yeah.
That means you're not just trying to throw a drop in the ocean. You're looking for the best high percentage three. And you're looking for the shooters. And if you look at the stat sheet, that's what you see. You see Kramer 4 for 7, Ott 2 for 2, Whitehorn 2 for 4, and then you didn't have Amari Robinson shooting threes. And I mean, you really don't want Amari Robinson shooting a lot of threes. I mean, 3 for 3 is, I think, the best you can do with Amari Robinson. She's more of a scorer type player. She's not as much of a shooter, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she battled an injury in this game, if I'm not mistaken. She only played 25 minutes and only had one personal foul as well. If my memory serves me right, I'm pretty sure she was battling some sort of stinger. But yeah, to go off what you just said, if you're shooting 47% on 20 plus 3-pointers, that's immaculate. Like, that is. You're not going to get much freaking better as a team shooting 47% on 20 plus threes. 49% from the field, another immaculate number. I mean, as a team, for you to shoot that high caliber, you were firing on all cylinders as a group.
Yep.
Whitehorn had a great game, 8 for 15. She had 18 points, 3 steals, 5 assists. Also put in 3 rebounds. So, I mean, supporting cast is coming around in these, in these get right games, the Air Force and the ETSU. So hopefully it continues. I mean, hopefully Robinson can get some more consistent help from Whitehorn, Kramer, things of those nature. Kramer's coming around though. I mean, like that's one thing we were talking about last episode that we were kind of worried about is the fact that, a lot of these transfer players for the women's just haven't found their footing. But she's starting to get where she's getting some solid minutes. She had 22 in this game as well. So what's that, 3 games in a row of 20 plus minutes?
Yeah.
So
and she had 12 points off that 22 minutes. So
yep.
I mean, that's efficient basketball right there. But one thing I would like to mention about Whitehorn, yes, she had 3 turnovers, but she had 5 assists. So she still finished ahead of the assist to turnover ratio when it was all said and done.
That she did. We got some good news here from a recruit for Clemson women's basketball. Why don't you go ahead with that, buddy?
Okay, so the highly recruited Amari Berry, she just scored 2,000 points. So great job to her. Very top recruit for Clemson, and it's already showing what Clemson's got coming in, and it makes it exciting to see what the future holds for Amanda Butler and the Lady Tigers.
Yeah. 2,000 points is an absurd number, especially for a high school career. So,
yeah.
Hats off to her. Hope she enjoyed her holiday as long as all of the Lady Tigers. What do we got coming up on the schedule here, brother?
So we got now we're into the meat and potatoes of it, so to speak. They got North Carolina on the 31st. and I believe that's at North Carolina. Is that correct?
That is correct. On the
Yeah.
CW network on Sunday, 12 p.m.
Wow.
Then the following Sunday, so a whole week later on ACC Network, we play number 22 Florida State at home. So back-to-back ranked games.
Yep.
They got their work cut out for them. So
And
hopefully,
if you can steal one of these, you're looking at a possible good season.
Yeah, for sure.
In the ACC.
For sure.
Yep.
And Syracuse is another team out of the women's side of things that is making a lot of noise. They're 10-1. I really do think that they're a team that we're going to have to sit down and, be talking about per se to a pretty strong degree. Their starters play a ton of minutes. I was looking at one of their box scores the other day, and they were playing Cornell, I believe. And all of their starters had over 35 minutes. I was like, Jesus, like, does your bench exist?
Yeah.
But so Syracuse 9-1, 10-1, excuse me. The women's side of things, there's a lot of really good teams, man. Like you got Florida State 9-3, Virginia Tech 9-2, Louisville 11-2, Notre Dame 9-1, NC State's undefeated, UNC's 8-4. Like we're gonna figure it out real quick.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier for the Lady Tigers from here on out. Looking down the schedule.
Most definitely not. But to get inside of the men's side of things, we had a tough first loss versus Memphis. It was a hard-fought game. Really wished better out of our men, but we lost the games ourselves when we look at the box score. Go ahead over that, Justin.
So, one thing I would like to add about this game is Clemson actually started out on a hot start. It was what, a 13, what was it, 10-2 run or something like that?
And I literally texted you. I texted you and I said we're starting off right.
Yeah.
And then you didn't text me again until after the game when you said, "Yep, turnovers."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, dang it."
And I mean, you like to see us get off to a hot start, but you also like, in this situation, in this game, one thing I can say about this game was, like I said, turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got off to that hot start, and then I think we had 2 turnovers in a row to get them back into the game.
Yep.
And then, I mean, if you look at the stats, yes, I mean, we had 15 turnovers, but I mean, if you look at the points off turnovers in a crucial game like this where you only lose by 2, Memphis had 17 points off those turnovers. And if you're going to play ACC basketball, or if you're going to play any type of basketball on a night where you have 15 turnovers and they have just as many points as turnovers, you're in trouble.
And I also want to point out that, we shot the 3 pretty bad, but they shot the 3 pretty bad as well. We shot 30% from the 3-point line, 7 of 23, but they shot 4 for 26. The thing that made a huge difference to me in this game, and I went back and watched this game as well, and I'm not one to usually point this out, but there was some serious home cooking going on. In this game, there was 8 more free throws shot by Memphis. They shot 17 of 23. We shot 10 of 15, excuse me. 66% versus 73%. I mean, that's a tell of a tape right there. Chef getting in foul trouble hurt really bad. We were trying to run a more smaller lineup to combat their press that they run. In my opinion, it was not working. I am not a fan of both the Hunter brothers on the floor at the same time. I've vocalized that many times to you, to other people. I'm just not a fan of that look where you're having both the Hunter brothers and Gerard all on the floor at the same time. I think that's an idiotic lineup. I don't care who you have at power forward and center. That's just ridiculous to me to have A, that many ball handlers, and B, Dylan Hunter in specific hasn't come along well enough, in my opinion, offensively for him to be on the floor, as the third guard, and we're without our best rebounder because he's in foul trouble. And in my opinion, at that point, you insert Godfrey and give him the let you have the resurgence off the bench, the rebounding, physicality, post play, things of that nature. Don't throw in me another ball handler when Gerard and Hunter can both do that perfectly fine, in my opinion.
Yeah, because in my opinion, when Dylan's in the game gets sped up. I don't know if that's the way Brownell wants it played, but it just seems like the game gets sped up when Dylan Hunter's entered into the lineup with Chase.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at this, and you already point this out, that because of what Memphis threw at us, we really couldn't use Godfrey in the game, which is why his minutes dwindled big time in this game.
Yep.
I mean, he only had 5 minutes and only 2 points.
But see, the frustrating part about it is when you look at the same box score and see that Godfrey only had 5 minutes, 2 points, and Dylan Hunter played 29 minutes and had 3 points and 5 assists and 4 rebounds in 29 minutes. See, in my personal opinion, what I feel like we tried to do was we tried to combat Memphis's that's kind of a tongue twister there. Memphis's but their ability to run up and down the floor, because they run smaller lineups, and I think we tried to combat that by running a smaller lineup of our own. And I would rather us just stay with what we would have had. That's why I said what I said. I would have rather us just put in Godfrey, run post play, because that's where our 3 points come from successfully. Not just running down the floor and running motion. It comes from pick and roll, comes from post pass, make a move, go up. If it doesn't go in, get a rebound, kick out, things of that nature. Like if you're just running down and running motion offense, you're not going to be extremely successful, in my opinion. And between that and Shefflin not being able to necessarily insert himself like he should have been able to, I mean, the dude played with 4 rebounds and still had a double-double and added 6 assists. And he, if I'm not mistaken, that's the lowest number of minutes he's played all season.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like you said, he had 4 player fouls, but I mean, he had 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 11 points.
Yep.
I mean, that's efficient minutes.
5 for 7 on the field too.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was weird to me was how, I mean, we've pointed this out many times. We're still banged up. When it comes to our bench, we're still extremely banged up. We're still missing Hemingway. We were running Baz a couple of minutes last game, or Boz, excuse me. I still fumble on his name. We're still running Boz a little bit, ran Beetle a little bit, but the main reason why people got the minutes that they got, and we only ran 4 people off the bench in total, was because we're still battling serious injury. I'm hoping we can get these guys back, before we get into ACC play, where sometimes you're going to run into the foul trouble side of things. And I don't know, man. This game was extremely frustrating for me. Like I said, watching it, I felt like there was some homerism going on with Memphis being at the house. But, I mean, you take some, you give some. But at the end of the day, it was a hard loss. Looks better for us because Memphis went and played another ACC opponent who was ranked, Virginia, and wiped the floor with them. So, I mean, makes us, feel a little bit better about the loss, but you never really feel that great about any type of loss, regardless of the fact. But
Yeah.
before we get into the next game for Queens, um, New Year's coming right around. Do you or your loved ones need any fan gear? If you do, make sure you visit truevictory.com. Get 15% off your order. Also, if you shop on Amazon, please make sure you visit the Greenville Sports Media page. Click on the Amazon link to order all your fan gear. I'll let you go ahead and get to the bounce back that was the Queens College game.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing we got to realize that this is a lesser opponent. Queens is a lesser opponent team, but I mean, you blew them out, which was great. PJ Hall scored 27. Gerard and Wiggins tallied both 19. And one thing we might add is the 109 points is the most in a Brownell era. So, I mean, looking at the stat sheet, you did see a bounce back. Turnovers came down. Only had 7 turnovers, 20 points off their 10 turnovers. So, I mean, it was a great bounce back for Clemson.
For sure.
63% from the field, 52% from 3.
Sheesh.
I mean, it was an execution type game.
Yeah.
Look for the open shot. If the open shot's there, take it. If not, as I've always told as players as a coach, your first shot is not always your best shot. There's another shot on the floor, somewhere on the floor. Unless you are wide slam open, and you have the green light to shoot it, I don't want you to shoot it. I want you to pass it up for another opportunity. And I mean, that's what it looks like they did here in this game. They 52% from the 3, that's great. And like I said, 63% from the field, that's even better.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out about this game is the same thing that makes me extremely pissed off that we played the way we did against Memphis. And the reason why I say that, and I understand this is a lesser opponent and it's a totally different game, but in the same extent, when you look at it, and Godfrey's playing 24 minutes in this game, has 8 of 9 field goals, 19 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. I mean, the dude literally missed 1 shot. Like, put him in the game. Like, he's our spark off the bench. He's the guy that's going to get things moving. Like, I don't know what it was in that Memphis game, and I'm not trying to go backwards because I know we just got off of it, but that game extremely frustrated me the way Brownell handled it. And, I'd like to see that Godfrey came out in this game probably with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Like, I really could have done some dirty work in this game, and you just left me on the bench with my warm-ups on. So, another thing I wanted to point out, Wiggins had 13 points. Another great game from him. He's coming along real well. So you touched on a lot of it. 52% from 3 is extremely high, and 63% from the field is about as damn good as you're going to get.
Yep.
So,
and one thing I want to add there, 62 points in the paint and produced 37 points from the bench. That's outstanding. Because the 62 points in the paint proves that you're looking for the other open shots. You're looking for the higher percentage shot as to where you could be sitting out at the 3-point line and you're not settling.
Yeah. And see, that's the other thing, that I feel like more or less is something I pointed to in the last game. I want us to live and die by playing inside of the paint. Like, we need to be a team that plays from the inside out, not the outside in. Because, when we're getting around the rim and we're making good shots, and we're making, tough post plays, offensive rebound, kickouts, things of that nature. That is what this team is going to be successful around. And I mean, I really do think that sort of play, pick and roll, um, back to the basket play is going to pay dividends inside of the ACC, where you're going to run into people like Flipkowski, you're going to run into people like Baycott, you're going to run into people that are much bigger than the opponents you've been playing. So you're going to have to play with some sort of physicality. Not a lot of run and gun teams in the ACC.
No, not like in recent past.
Yeah.
I mean, in recent past, you had Duke, that was a run and gun team. You had North Carolina. You had sometimes Georgia Tech have been thrown in that mix with Alvarado and all that.
Miami last year was another one that was
last year. I mean, you don't have that as much this year in the ACC, which is good in this situation, because when you play these nitty-gritty games, as Brownell keeps saying, Clemson grit games, and you shoot as well as you did, I mean, that pays dividends when you play these opponents in the ACC.
Yeah, continuously going down. Like I said this from at the heart of the season, when I believe this was when we recorded after we played. It was like maybe 5 or 6 games. I really do feel like it's coming true now. It's going to come down to Carolina, Duke, and Clemson for the ACC, in my personal opinion. I think Miami is fake as heck. Like they rode the coattails of last year and being ranked. I don't think they're as good as they were last year. Of course, they still have some, good game breakers like Wong and such. But, I mean, Virginia's a wash of themselves from the past. Like, that slow them down, physicality play. They don't have the players, I think, to run it. And when you're looking down, the ACC as a whole, I can't find any other teams that I feel like head for head is going to give Clemson a run for their money as much as Duke or Carolina. And I think Carolina is damn good. Do not get me wrong. They are going to be a title contender if they can stay healthy. And Duke, they started off a little bit slow, but that's how Duke is. That usually the first 10, 15 games they struggle because you're playing, those ginormous invitationals and playing Kentucky, and UNC and Duke never ever get a break at the beginning of the season. They don't get to play a Queens College. So I'm thankful to the extent that we haven't had to have extremely high caliber games. We've had some, don't get me wrong. We have TCU, Memphis was a good game, but we're not playing UConn and Kentucky and teams of that nature, where you already know exactly what your team is going into ACC play. Of course, there's still some question marks for us, but I feel like with our level of consistency and what we have in this team, I think we are the third best team in the ACC, and I think we will contend for the ACC this year.
Yes, and one thing I want to add is, like you said, if you look down at the ACC as a whole, there's too much inconsistency right now in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned last episode, Georgia Tech is someone we need to look at. Well, Georgia Tech just dropped a game, and they shouldn't have dropped the game that they lost. And if you look at the ACC as a whole, there is no reason. I'm not going to say we're going to win it, but I'm going to say we can compete for the ACC championship that we should have won last year.
Yeah.
In a down year.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's hats off to the recruiting, that's hats off to the transfer portal, and that's hats off to the development of these teams. People like Dick Bender, who actually helps Burnell develop these players.
Most
and
legendary
some of the
name.
Other coaches, Terrell McIntyre, he helps develop some of these players. And that's hats off to his staff too.
Yeah, for sure. Dick Bender's got to be the most legendary name in college basketball.
Yes, very much so.
Gotta love that. Would love to have him on the show at some point. But Virginia Tech is another team. When you're looking at them, you want to talk about inconsistency. It's like, yeah, you look at them, you're like, yeah, they're 9-3. Like, they're probably pretty solid. And then you see, oh, they lost to South Carolina, and oh, they got waxed by FAU, and oh, Auburn slapped them around like a redheaded stepchild. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's so crazy when you're looking down the ACC in general right now. And I cannot find another team. I mean, maybe State. Like, State gave Tennessee a run for their money. That was a really good game. But other than playing Tennessee, their next best opponent is Ole Miss, who stepped on them. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't see another team out there right now that, other than the two I named, which is Carolina and Duke, that, you know,
And
hands down contends with us.
And go back to those puppies. I mean, they had to win in overtime against Boston College. I mean, granted,
Yeah.
it was at Boston College, and like I said, there is no place easy to play in the ACC. But you had to go to overtime against. I mean, let's face it, Boston College is a lesser opponent in the ACC.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, they played Tennessee tough, but like you said, they get smacked around by Ole Miss and
BYU.
and BYU.
Yeah.
I mean, the inconsistency is definitely there in the ACC, and it's one thing that's going to make this season very, very exciting to see.
Yeah.
And like we keep saying, Clemson now, you're going to probably finish out with a win. So you've gone the entire out-of-conference schedule at, what is it, now 11-1? I mean, that's great. Because when you get into the nitty-gritty of the ACC and you need that extra one quad win, you can go back and say, well, we lost to Memphis by 2 points up at Memphis.
Yeah.
We beat Alabama in Alabama. I mean, we beat these teams that we were supposed to beat. We beat TCU. We beat Boise State.
We beat Pitt in the zoo.
I mean, this makes the committee's job even harder when we get to Selection Sunday. And if, let's say, Clemson's on the cusp of the bubble, which I don't see them being in the bubble. I mean, right now, and this is an amazing stat. Actually, Mark Ryan mentioned this. Clemson and South Carolina, for the first time in 27 years, are both fully in the NCAA tournament if it was played tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great to hear.
And one thing I wanted to point out, and when you're looking at, out of conference as well, and one conference game being Pitt, so far, Clemson has played a total of seven tournament teams from last year. Yep. And we won all those games but one. So, I mean, and we lost that game by 2 points. So it's going to pay dividends in the long run, being able to come back and look at it. But it doesn't get any easier. We pointed this out in the last episode. It's going to get hectic real quick when it comes to ACC play. These guys are going to get –
you get one game this Friday against Radford, and then after that, it's ACC after ACC after ACC.
And we go to Miami. 3 days later, come home, play North Carolina. 4 days later, go on the road, play at Virginia Tech, which is always hell to play at. Come back home 3 days later, play Boston College at home. Stay at home 3 days later, play Georgia Tech. 4 days later, on the road versus Florida State. 7 days later, on the road versus Duke. Like, it is – like, this schedule for the ACC is crazy. It's going to be a lot of travel, a lot of, grit and grind, but I'm hoping and praying, man, that we can come out of this ACC month of January and feel really good about where we are.
Yep. Definitely.
Luckily, a lot of the more or less the big time game that I point to is North Carolina, of course, and having them at home is huge because we play like crap in the Dean Dome. I still don't know what that record is. I want to say it's 56-1 or 53-1, one of the two. But it's a number that's pretty embarrassing. So the fact that we get them at home first, I feel is really big. But it's like I said, you're coming 3 days later off of playing Miami in Miami. Like, as fake as I think Miami is, traveling from Miami back to South Carolina and playing the number 9 team in the nation is not exactly realistic, but I'm hoping we can get it done.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's 59-1.
59-1, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily we don't have to play North Carolina in North Carolina until February the 6th. So we're going to play them on January the 6th in Little John and then turn around and play them at their place a month later, exactly a month later, which is pretty crazy. But so hopefully we can get, the first punch in and maybe we'll knock them out and get, 2-0 on them. Is that realistic? Probably not, but I'd like for it to happen because I can't stand any team that has to deal with Carolina because I am from North Carolina. So growing up and being in high school and dealing with nothing but NC State and North Carolina, and you sprinkle in a Duke fan here and there, it's weird to me, dude. I really don't care about Duke. Like, Duke does not bother me whatsoever. It's North Carolina and State that I just cannot stand.
Yeah.
So I would, of course, like to get, 2-0 versus Carolina, being in the fact that we don't get to play the puppies. Sadly, I like beating up on the puppies.
Me too.
But anyway, you got anything else to add, brother?
No, man. It like I said, it just gets tougher. Actually, I think you might be right. I think it's like 61-1. Because we snapped the record. The winning streak because it was at 59 straight losses, and in 2020 we snapped the record. It's crazy to hear that Brownell is to this day the only Clemson basketball coach to win up in Chapel Hill.
It's crazy that to this day that Clemson basketball has only won one time in Chapel Hill. I don't understand.
There's something in the water that they drink during the timeouts or something that keeps us from winning up there. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And some of these games are just the weirdest things. I remember the game, what's the year? Back in 14, where we came into the game on a hot streak and we lost to them in overtime.
Yeah.
And it was weird too because we threw the ball in and for some reason the ref said that the guy that received the ball was stepped on the line or something.
Yeah, I remember this.
What?
I remember this.
And you're like, no, he didn't. He has 2 feet, 2 inches in front of the line. But they called it. I mean, it's just something weird about Chapel Hill that I don't know if good old Dean Smith put a curse on us or someone back back then put a curse on us. Something happened because we just never play great in Chapel Hill.
No, most definitely
it's great
not.
to have them at home at least.
Yeah, for the first run. The first run is definitely great to have them at the house. The one game I remember, if I had to point to, was, I believe, in 2010 when we had Trevor Booker and we beat the piss out of them like 83-64. And I remember that year I talked the most smack at school. And the following year we played them and we lost both times.
Yeah.
By double digits in both games.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those teams that we don't take lightly. just like Duke, we do not take North Carolina lightly. I mean, for example, last year, North Carolina couldn't find a drop in the ocean from three, and they finished, what was it, like 60% from three or
Yeah,
something crazy? And it was like,
Caleb Love was shooting like 15% from three the whole entire season. Comes and plays Clemson and shoots like over 50%. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And what's crazy is my buddy who's a big time UNC fan. Shout out Rico Ross, but he's a huge UNC fan. And bro, like I'm sitting there talking the most smack to him. I'm like, man, there ain't no way. Like Caleb Love is garbage. And then this dude comes out here and just drops bombs on our forehead. Like, bro, we're shooting Curry range threes. I was like, yeah, this is ridiculous.
And it's one of those things that you look at the games and you're just like, huh, that's Clemson North Carolina rivalry right there.
Yeah.
I mean, we just never play great there, and just
No.
it's frustrating. I mean, not to mention that especially if we get Teddy Valentine, which usually we do, it's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah.
Because, Teddy Valentine likes to call those phantom illegal screens that Clemson supposedly loves to set.
Yeah.
And then you look back at the tape and there's no illegal screen. The guy's set and everything, and here
Teddy
he
Valentine
goes calling an illegal screen.
Teddy Valentine's also the king of Mr. Block in the back when no one's there. I'm like, Jesus Almighty.
Yes.
But anyway,
I can tell you some stories about Teddy Valentine sometime.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely crazy sometime when you're looking at some of these referees and how in the world they got their jobs that they got.
Right.
But we're going to have some fun here coming up soon. We got some big time special guests in between the ACC schedule that's coming up here, the new year, things of that nature. We'll release a little bit more on that when we have them fully scheduled. We're in talks right now, but nothing's set in stone, so we don't want to put anything on air before that happens. But we will let y'all know as soon as it does. Brother, it's been a great episode. We're going to have some fun here in the next couple of weeks, like I said, with some big-time special guests, getting our name out there even more. Anything else you got for me, bro?
Nah, that's it, man.
All right. Well, for Hard in the Paint, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Justin.
We'll catch y'all on the next one real soon.
Later, guys.